Good morning. Welcome to the 2020 Ham Exposition New England Aries Academy Series. I'm Steve, WA1EYF, located in Amherst, New Hampshire, the producer of today's session. Your presenter today will be Jay, K1EHZ. He was first licensed in 1958 as K1EHZ and was out of ham radio for about 40 years, picking up it again after he retired. He is the AEC for training in the Greater Manchester, New Hampshire Aries. He's also the Winlink SysOp and maintains the Winlink HF VHF hybrid gateway on behalf of Hillsborough County and Greater Manchester, New Hampshire Aries. Assisting today with the presentation will be George, N1GB, and Paul, KC1KMM. The topic today will be Introduction to Winlink Express. This session will run approximately 2 hours with a 5-minute break around 10 o'clock. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the Q&A box at the bottom or the top of your Zoom screen. We'll try to address the questions at the end of the session to allow good flow of the presentation. The chat will be disabled. Thank you for attending. It's all yours, Jay.
Thank you, Steve, and good morning, everyone. It's a lovely day here in southern New Hampshire. I'm in Bedford, just east of Manchester. The maple leaves out my window are really bright red. It's a lovely day here, 39 and raining, but a nice fall day in New England, and a good morning to chat about Winlink Express. I'd like to begin by thanking the folks who are helping me out, and Steve already introduced him. Steve's with Hillsborough County Aries. Paul, KC1KMM, is with Greater Manchester. And George, N1GB, is our liaison way up north in Coos County, New Hampshire. He's about 115 miles due north of me, and George tells me that he's got snow this morning, so better you than me, George. Also, I'll draw your attention to the fact that George will be running the NBEMS workshop next Saturday in this time slot. So if you're not familiar with FLDG and its companion programs, or you haven't used it for a while and you're a little rusty, please keep George's workshop in mind. So our objectives this morning are to learn some basic Winlink Express skills, and also to pick up training ideas so your Aries group can continue exploring Winlink if that's something you'd like to do. Aries has a toolbox of a wide range of skills and programs. So Winlink is just one tool in that toolbox. There's a list here, and as I was writing this out, I thought, wow, who would have thought a year ago that Zoom would be a tool in the Aries toolbox? So awfully glad that that Steve has been willing to take that role on for us. So having been a member of various organizations over the years, I've come to realize that not everyone needs to know everything. So I can appreciate that those of you who may have been working on NBEMS or other aspects of Aries training, taking on one more program like Winlink may seem daunting, but not everyone needs to know everything. You can have a few volunteers in your Aries group that are proficient with each of the tools that your group uses, and then the specialists for each tool can train others as needed. So that's how it's worked in our Aries group and in other different kinds of organizations that I've been part of. So it doesn't need to be daunting, and for what it's worth, I found FLDG to be easier to learn than, I found Winlink to be easier to learn than FLDG. So the approach we want to take this morning is to sort of take a high-level look at Winlink and a system overview, take a look at some of the equipment that's used, talk about a few group training activities, and then get into more of the details of Winlink Express and how to actually make it work for you. We'll end with questions and comments. If a question comes up, certainly feel free to post it, but I'm not going to be looking at questions right away. I may take a look at some in the break, and if something really important pops up, Steve will interrupt me, but I'd like to try to focus on, there's a fair bit of material here, and I'd like to try to focus on presenting as much of it as I can, so you'll have a good background of basic stuff. I won't get into too many of the really specialized aspects of Winlink, but I do want to give you the tools so that you can explore it on your own afterwards. So Winlink is a worldwide store and retrieve email system that operates over radio and internet. You can exchange email with any valid email address in the world when the internet is available to the system. When the internet is not there, there are peer-to-peer and radio-only modes that don't go to worldwide addresses, but will go to call sign at winlink.org addresses, which is the standard address format for Winlink email. So you'll find if you look around the various chat boards that occasionally people will say, you know, which is better, Winlink or NBEMS? In fact, the programs complement each other in my view, and in fact, in our group, we use them in a complementary way. Both programs can be open on the computer at the same time. They can share a sound card, they can share a frequency. Last year in the set, we were running FLDG, Winlink, and voice all on the same frequency, just to prove to ourselves that we could do it. And it works if traffic isn't too busy. If traffic gets really busy, then you may want to split things up on different frequencies. But we didn't have any trouble in our area using them on the same frequency. You can also manually transfer messages between FLDG and Winlink, so you don't have to recopy them. You can copy and paste or use attachments to move messages from one to the other. Importantly here, if you have a sound card for NBMS, then you're ready to do Winlink. That's all you need is a radio, sound card, and a computer. So the Winlink Global Radio Email System is operated by the All-Volunteer Amateur Radio Safety Foundation. They do have real expenses, so they appreciate a $25 donation to help them out with those. The software is free and you don't have to make a donation, but it's welcomed and it does help them keep the system running. So the structure of the system at a high level now is based on common message servers that are on the internet and radio message servers that bridge radio to internet. This is the sort of standard slide that they use. So here we are down here. We'll be running a client, Winlink Express, on our local computers. Using these modes here, we can transmit email up to radio message servers, which are radios that are connected to the internet through a computer. And from there, messages go up to the central message servers, which are operating in the Amazon cloud. So this is one area where expenses come into play for the group that runs Winlink. You can also get into the system directly on Telnet, go right over the internet and into the cloud and pick up your mail. For radio-only messaging, what we do is each operator establishes 2 message pickup stations, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. So in this case, station A can send a message up to one of the radio message servers. It then gets relayed by an automatic relay system to the message pickup stations designated by operator B, and then operator B can pick up messages from one or the other of the message pickup stations. There are 2 stations, but you can only pick up from one. Once you've picked up from one, Winlink is smart enough to not download a duplicate message. So, the trick about message pickup stations is to pick 2 that you can reach pretty easily from your location. And this is an HF system, not a VHF system. So you have to do it on HF. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So that's radio-only messaging. You can also do peer-to-peer messaging. You can connect directly to another station that's within range. You can, again, use any of these modes. They all have peer-to-peer. And in this case, you can do peer-to-peer both on VHF and on HF. Finally, you can check email using webmail. So you can get on with your smartphone or your tablet or so forth and sign into your system, your Winlink account on webmail. Oh, sorry. So what equipment do we need? Well, of course, you need a radio, VHF, UHF, FM, and or HF, and you need appropriate antennas. That's obvious. So for packet, you can use TNCs, and some of the TNCs on the right here, some of you who've been around ham radio for a while may recognize. They work fine with Winlink, some of the old ones. I've got one of the first ones that Cantronics made. That must be 30 years old now, and it works fine. It was in service as a digipeater for a while, and it's still working fine. Then the one on the left here, the Bionics, you may recognize if you do APRS. This is very popular for APRS, but you can also use it for VHF packet Winlink. One of the nice innovations recently is the development of software TNCs, so that you don't need to use a hardware TNC. You can use a software TNC with a sound card like Winlink, which is a common one. There are others, Rig Blaster and so forth. I'm going to be talking mostly about signal links today, so when we talk about settings and so forth, it'll be about signal links, but you may be able to work out the settings if you have a Rig Blaster or another type of sound card. So the software TNCs will provide all modes on a sound card except Telnet and Pactor. Telnet, of course, is direct internet. You don't need a sound card, and Pactor is a specialized modem, which is fairly expensive. So you can do HF with these modes, and on VHF you can use sound modem and VARA FM with your signal link to do Winlink Express. Here's some software downloads. You've probably found these already. I'm not going to go through a download just to save time. But again, this presentation will be available on the GM Aries website, and the links are here if you need to use them. So how can my Aries group use Winlink? Well, if you have a UHF, VHF gateway nearby, you can certainly get into Winlink from them. And here's a list of the gateways, or a map, I should say, of the gateways in the greater New England area. Quite a few in Connecticut, some along the coast here, quite a few in Maine along the coast, a couple in New Hampshire. So if you're within 25 or 30 miles of one of these gateways, you can hook up and get on the Winlink global system. Another way to do it is on HF. These are HF gateways in the area. They all work pretty well. You'll see that some of them here are H gateways. That indicates they're hybrids. A hybrid gateway has both VHF and HF. And more importantly, these are the stations that do the radio-only relaying that we talked about a little bit earlier. To be a hybrid gateway, you have to be able to run Pactor, although recently hybrid gateways have been able to use the new VARA system, which is fairly high speed and is very similar to Pactor in speed over the air. So if you have an HF station, you can connect with any of these stations, and you can even these are sort of within NVIS range, and but you can get on 20 meters and go even further, go out west and so forth. So what about if you don't have a local gateway? What can your group do? Well, you can get on FM packet. You can set up a local packet digipeater, which is pretty simple. It's an FM radio, a TNC, a power supply, and an antenna. And it's easy for me to imagine that if your group wanted to set up a digipeater, someone in your group has an FM radio sitting around they're not using. Somebody probably has a TNC they might not have used for the last 5 or 10 years, and a power supply and an omnidirectional antenna. And you can set up your own digipeater to serve your group, and then you can use that to communicate with each other on Winlink. This is our system here in southern New Hampshire. We have a hybrid gateway here. We have 3 digipeaters, one up in Bow on Quimby Mountain. This one in Manchester is at a hospital. It's on the roof of a hospital, which is a great location. And we have one hosted by K1EHZ down here in Nashua. So we can cover our general area pretty well, from Nashua to Manchester and up into Concord. We also have an HF gateway here in Bow on Quimby Mountain, K1EHZ 12. I'm going to digress for just a moment and speak to the folks in our area here. I do have some additional digipeater equipment. If anybody in the outskirts of our area is interested in hosting a digipeater, I can provide some equipment and get you going, and we can expand our gateway here. It's again, it's pretty easy to do. So again, if you don't have a gateway, you can set up a digipeater and do peer-to-peer packet. You can do peer-to-peer VARA. VARA is a direct mode, so it doesn't run through a digipeater, but you can run VARA FM peer-to-peer and have some fun with that. Perhaps somebody in your group would volunteer to be a Winlink sysop, and then you can set up your own ARES group gateway to the internet. And a gateway to the internet is basically a digipeater with a computer and an internet connection. So it's pretty easy to make the transition, but you do need to have someone who is set up as a sysop on the Winlink system in order to access the Winlink global system over the internet. So what kind of activities can you do? Well, these are a couple that we've been doing, and we've been having some fun with them. Wednesday Winlink check-in net is a net anytime on Wednesday, or pick whatever day you want to do. There are lots of groups around the country. Some do Tuesday, some do Thursday. I actually got this idea from a ARES group in Virginia who was passing some of their Winlink Wednesday messages through our gateway. And so I said, well, Wednesday seems like a good day. So what you do is anytime on Wednesday, someone is designated as net control, and then everybody sends a Winlink message to that net control station. We try to do it over the radio, but if you need to use Telnet to get started, then by all means do that, and then transition people over to radio modes. So that's been kind of fun, and we've enjoyed doing that. The other thing that we've done recently is to set up a peer-to-peer net, and we did this for a week in New Hampshire just to see how it would work. And we did it over a 7-day period to accommodate propagation and people's schedules and so forth. And it worked out really well. We had lots of fun. After a couple of days of doing basic stuff, people started experimenting and not just sending messages and picking up messages from the main central station, but then starting to work each other and send each other messages. And then they started sending forms and attachments and relaying between stations, and it got to be quite a bit of fun, and we learned a lot in the process. So that's another way that your ARES group can get started with Winlink if that's something you're not doing now. And winter's coming, so Winlink might be a nice winter project for your group. You can certainly think about that. I'm going to take a sip of coffee here, and we'll get started with some of the details for Winlink Express. So these are the modes we've been talking about: Telnet over the internet, packet, and VARA FM, ARDOP, VARA HF, and PACTOR. So Telnet is an internet-only mode. Packet and VARA FM are VHF, UHF modes, and then ARDOP, VARA HF, and PACTOR. are HF modes. ARDOP comes with Winlink Express. The VARA modes, VARA FM and VARA HF, are third-party programs that are accommodated within Winlink, but you have to download them separately. There are free versions that run at a lower rate. For about $70, you can buy a registration for the high-speed version. And one registration is good for all of the products produced by Jose Nieto, who developed VARA. So for $70, you can use both of these at their highest speed, but certainly try them out. What our group found was the people who were running the low-speed versions during our peer-to-peer exercise were keen to buy the registration number to get the higher speed numbers. So in terms of equipment, these four, as we talked about earlier, use sound cards. Packet also can use a TNC, and Pactor requires a modem, which is fairly pricey. You can find them used for around $500, but a new one is anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000. VARA HF is becoming very popular because its speed is about the same as Pactor, but it's only $70 if you buy the high-speed version of the program. So these modes can be used over internet and radio. That is, you use the radio to access the internet. The two HF modes are, these two HF modes are radio only. And the reason those modes are chosen is because they're high speed and they can pass traffic in the automatic mode between the RMSs that participate in the hybrid network. All modes will do peer-to-peer. To do Telnet peer-to-peer, you have to be in the same subnet. So this is used on ARDOP networks, for example, or if you're in a large building with a number of stations, you can use Telnet to communicate using Winlink across the same subnet in an internet situation. The reason you have to be on the same subnet is that this works by IP address. And then in terms of being able to use digital repeaters, Packet, you can use a digipeater that I talked about earlier. VARA FM, Jose Nieto is working on an FM, a VARA FM repeater. It's been written up, it's a big deal, VARA FM with real digipeating, so that's coming soon. You can find that on the Winlink site and check out what Jose is doing with that. So there are a bunch of modes, as we saw, but the workflow for each of them is pretty similar. So once you sort of understand the way the work flows, then moving from one mode to another is not very complicated. So basically, you prepare a message, you select the mode you want to use and open a session, and then you click the start in the session window. So in preparing a message, there are three message types. Remember, we've got regular Winlink, we've got radio-only messaging, and we have peer-to-peer. So when you set up a message, you have to specify which one of those you want to choose. In regular email, you can just sort of post right to the outbox. In Winlink Express, in regular email, you can just send it. In Winlink Express, you have to post it to the outbox first before you can send it. Once you've done that, then you select the mode that you want to use and open a session in the session window. And then you have to select the gateway that you want to send your message to via radio. And in order to help you do that, you can open and update the channel selection feature and then double click on the desired channel. And in a moment, I'll show you why I advise people to use the channel selection method to choose a channel. It simplifies one particular aspect of Winlink that can be kind of perplexing or confusing. And then simply start the session in the session window. So the steps are pretty straightforward. There are not too many, and they're similar for all of the modes. So what training resources are available? Well, there's winlink.org. You've probably been there. It's got lots of information right on the front page. Here's the VARA digipeating again. You can scroll down, and how to set up a Winlink account is over here. There are training videos, featured training videos that you can check out, all right on the front page. And I mentioned if you wanted to set up your own sysop, if someone in your group wanted to volunteer to be a sysop so that you can connect a gateway to the Winlink system, you have to get in touch with Steve Waterman, and his contact information is right here at the bottom of the front page of the Winlink. It happens to be k4cjx@comcast.net, but I'm sure Steve would be happy to help you get your system on the internet. There are some links here to download software. This is the sound modem software that we need for VHF, and if you scroll down, what we're looking for is the sound modem program down here. So you can download that. VARA HF and VARA FM are available from EA5HVK, Jose Nieto. So when you download the software here, here's the HF software and the FM software. Scroll down and pick up the guides as well. These are well written and pretty clear. There's also a lot of detailed technical information if you're into sort of how these systems work. Jose's got other information down here that's fairly detailed documentation. There are two great programs for sound card settings produced by Oliver, K6OLI. There's one for setting up sound modem, another one for setting up VARA FM, and these are available on they're available on the internet. If you Google K6OLI sound modem or K6OLI VARA FM, you'll probably find the PDFs. They're also available on the GM Aries Winlink website, which is here. I'd like to recognize Ken and one KWG for setting up our nice website. This is our gateway here in Bedford. A stack of equipment, an HF radio, computer, VHF radio, auto tuner for the HF radio, a Pactor modem, and signal link. There's a TNC in here. I've since replaced it with another signal link so that I can do VARA FM on the VHF radio. And then there's material here to download the training modules that we use. We've tried to break Winlink down into small bites so that people can digest a little bit at a time if that's their learning mode. And then the two PDFs by K6OLI and how to adjust your system. So also there are some great videos. Hopefully you've been made aware of these. They're a terrific set of videos produced by Dan Marler on Vimeo, and the videos by K6OLI and AE5HVK are excellent for getting started with Winlink, and especially with VARA Winlink. Okay, so that's sort of the high level. Now I'm going to switch to, put this away and pick up Winlink Express. So this is the program. Let me expand it, get rid of some of the background material. So here's here's where your, call sign settings. This is how you register for Winlink. Once you've downloaded the program, put your call in and a password. It's really important to add in your location because this is where Winlink, this is the location Winlink uses to feed you information about propagation. You can also put in service codes. Public and income are popular ones, certainly one or the other for most of us. Another nice feature here is to put in an auxiliary call sign or a tactical call sign. So I happen to be associated with two hospitals here. So if I'm working at one of the hospitals, I might want to use a call sign that's associated with that hospital. So if I'm at Elliott Hospital, I might want to tag the messages that I'm sending as Elliott Hospital, K1EHZ. I also work at a second hospital, Catholic Medical Center. So if I'm over there participating in an exercise or doing our regular sorry, wants passwords. So now I've got a couple of tactical call signs that I can use, and if we update that, see if they appear. Well, I guess I have to update Winlink. I have to restart Winlink Express to get those to show. So some of the other features I'll point out here, there are contacts. You can set up a contact list. You can set up group addresses. You can set up additional folders. And we'll look at this one in a little bit more detail. These are the message pickup stations that I mentioned earlier. So you can update a list of message pickup stations that's available to you. And here it's updated for me, and then I can show the list and pick out stations that I can reach on HF to pick up mail if indeed we're in, someone is sending me radio-only messages. So there are 3 slots here to put in message pickup stations. Winlink suggests you only use 2 because it takes a fair bit of resources to move the messages around on the automated message relay system. So choose 2 stations that are near you or that you can reach conveniently on HF as message pickup stations. You can also put a regular email address in down here, and when the internet is operating, if a message appears in one of your message pickup stations, you'll get an email message saying you've got traffic waiting for you in your message at your message pickup stations. In terms of messages, here you just set up some of these features are reproduced in the icons here along the icon bar. There are various things that you can do. One of my favorite, and you can explore these on your own. One of my favorites is the communications log. You can generate a PDF communications log directly from this menu setting, and we'll check that out later. In terms of navigating the folders, they're here. You can move messages from one folder to another. Just choose the folder that you want to move one to. You can set up, you can move messages to read items, to sent items or saved items. And you just highlight the message and click this and it will move it to that folder. Over here is where you choose the session that you want to use. They're all listed here. Telnet here, the peer-to-peer sessions, and down here are the radio-only sessions. And Telnet Post Office is a specialized mode. Over here are logs. You can check out what's been going on your system. They're by date. You can open those as text documents, and you can see what's happening on your system. And there's a really good help system over here. So if you have questions, you can take a quick look and see if you can find it. You can also call up material by keyword and using the index here. Also point out down here that your contacts will appear over here as you fill them in. Let me point out in preferences under the settings menu, you can set up where you want to view messages. You can default to requesting message receipts. You can automatically send message receipts when they're requested and so forth. You can also automatically add contact entries for each destination address and do some other things. So you can explore those and choose which preferences you would like to use for operating. So let's, oh, and also I mentioned just briefly there are icons for handling messages over here. If you roll your cursor across them, you can see what they do. A part of the workflow is to prepare a message. So I'm going to set one up here. For Winlink addresses, you only need to type in the call sign. And you can separate call signs by spaces or by semicolons. The semicolon is the one that's automated. When you click away from the to box, the addresses already are automatically put into caps, and if you don't have a semicolon here at the end, it will add a semicolon, and you can add a subject. And then before you send a message, this is where you choose what kind of message you want to send, a regular Winlink message, a radio-only message, or a peer-to-peer message. So this is really important because if the mode of the message doesn't match the mode that you're sending, then the message won't go. It'll just stay in your outbox. You can request an automatic receipt from the other station, and you can set up defaults. So, for example, if I wanted to put a default CC address in here, which is a handy thing to do because Winlink will not copy a message to your own Winlink address. So if you set up a default, you can then have it appear automatically. It won't do it now because I'd have to reopen the message in order to get that to work. But I can put it in there. So now I can send a copy to my ARRL address and have it come up in my regular email. So I have a record of the email if I wish to do that. So once I've done all that, I don't have any attachments to add. I can post it to the outbox. And now I have a message in my outbox. So now if I open a session, in each session window, there are settings. And in the settings window here, we have a couple of choices to make. You most likely will not be using RMS relay, so you can leave that unchecked. Down here in the auto connect time, you can set up, if you leave your Telnet session window open, you can set it up to auto connect to the CMS and pick up any email that's waiting for you. You can choose an automatic timing. and the automatic timing varies between about 2 minutes and 16-minute intervals, and it makes the adjustment depending on how often you get new email at your CMS email box. So you can do that. That works with the window open. If you want to pick up email from the CMS in the background, you can check this box and set up a polling time, and then you only have to have Winlink Express open. You don't have to have the Telnet window open. I don't usually do that myself because I don't necessarily want to download messages every time I open up Winlink Express. I may be wishing to use a radio mode for test purposes, or just because I want to. And I don't want to download messages automatically every time I open Winlink. But if you prefer to use Winlink, and especially if you're going to use Telnet Winlink a lot, you can use this mode, activate it by picking a time, and you can also choose to send all messages that are sitting in your outbox at that moment. Okay, so let's click Start and send off the message to Paul and George, and I picked up one from K1EHZ. So this is the information that you get when you connect. It'll tell you a little bit about what's going on, what you've downloaded, how much time it took, the speed at which it operated, 8,300 bytes per minute, which is pretty quick, and as you see, it happened pretty quickly. So now the message that I had was, it's gone from my outbox, and here's a message from Rob, KC1CFI. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate the feedback. So that's Telnet Winlink. Works pretty smoothly, and it's one that lots of people use. Now, let's switch to radio and open a packet Winlink session. This happens now and then. Winlink is not responding. Oh, okay. So when you open a packet session, you're going to need to use sound modem. And the reason it stopped there was because it was downloading sound modem, or opening sound modem, I should say. So hopefully you've downloaded sound modem and set it up. To set it up, you click on devices, and here's where you choose your sound card. Again, your signal link. There are a bunch of them here. You'll see that I've got two sound cards. One is for VHF and one is for HF. So as when I open FLDigi, I always check to check that my computer has picked up the sound card. So I always check here to make sure that I've got the VHF signal link selected. Boxes to check over here: TX rotation, single channel, color waterfall, and stop waterfall and minimize. Again, if you're using your computer for other things while this is running in the background, you can stop the waterfall, and it reduces your CPU load a little bit. Make sure KISS server port is checked, and again, for signal link, you don't need any of these to be checked. The other item to look at are modems. I've always just accepted all of the defaults here. You just have to make sure that KISS optimization is selected and non-AX25 filter is selected, and all is checked over here. The rest of the defaults have always worked just fine for me. I've never changed them. Up here, a couple of things to look at. You want to make sure you're on 1700. That's the center frequency down here in your bandpass. And I've always found that this is the decoder threshold. I've always found that the decoder threshold default is fine. One thing that I found by accident that's really important is to check hold pointers. Make sure your pointers are centered on 1700 and then click hold pointers. At one point I was messing around and I slid the bandpass over, and I wondered why Winlink wasn't working. It took me a while to figure out that I had messed up the band pass. So clicking hold pointers kind of protects that for you. What's popping up here are our digipeaters. They identify both in CW and in packet. So one easy way for me to tell how well the system is working is just to open up sound modem and let it run for an hour or two, and then I can see if over time if all of the digipeaters are functioning. Okay, so now I've opened up a packet window. I'm going to connect to K1EHZ-12, which is a packet server about 10, a packet node about 10 miles from here. And you can watch what's happening. You can watch the dialogue happening in both places. So an important thing to note is that a completed session will show an FF and an FQ over here for packet. It's sometimes you can't tell if you get a disconnect in the middle of the session. You might have to go in again, but if you get an FF and FQ, this is basically one radio saying I have no messages for you, and the other radio responding I have no messages for you, and then the session is completed. I can also, this is a direct mode. As I mentioned, you can also use a digipeater through the Elliott. This would be the Elliott digipeater. And if I couldn't get to the gateway directly, I could go through a digipeater. You can set up 2 digipeters here. Each time you go through a digipeater, it slows down the process because the packets have to pass from the originating station to the receiving station. And if a packet doesn't make it all the way to the receiving station, then a message goes back through the digipeater to the sending station and says, send me that packet again. So the process is slowed down. Each digipeater, on average, slows down the process about 60%, to about 60%, I should say. So it's, but if it's the only way you can get a message through, then so be it. So so that's packet. So let's try packet P2P. I'm going to open that session, and again, we're going to use sound modem. And I'm going to look for a message from Paul, KC1KMM. So Paul, why don't you give it a shot and let's see how it works. So Paul is going to have to use a digipeater. So here it comes connecting. It says here that Paul's connecting via Elliott. That's our digipeater at Elliott Hospital. And the connection is made, and the message will hopefully start coming through here in a minute. So that was just a connection without a message. You can see it says FFFQ. And you'll notice Paul was using the digipeater, but I didn't have to be on the digipeater in order for that to work. And in fact, I probably didn't have to have his call sign in here either. I just need to have the P2P window open. So that is packet P2P. Direct connection can be made, and also through a digipeater. Let's see. Let's take a quick look at VARA FM.
Jay, when do you want the test messages put up?
Let's see. You can send a. We can try a VARA. You can send a message via VARA and see how that comes through. Paul and I are not too far apart, but we have these granite obstacles in between us that occasionally disrupt the connection. So Paul, I'm just going to do a regular VARA, and then I'll switch to VARA P2P, and you can send me a message in a minute. So I'm going to connect again to on using VARA on K1EHZ 12. This is the VARA sound modem. Again, set up. You'll need to make some settings here. For VARA, if you're using a signal link, you need to use the narrow FM window, and you have some options for retries here. I use 3 just in case we need them. VARA will do a wider band version on VHF, but you need to have a 9600 baud connection to your radio, and also a modem that will, a sound card that will do 9600. I understand that newer signal links will do 9600 if you take your signal link apart and it has black isolation transformers. Those may have the bandwidth to handle the 9600 VARA signal. The older ones that many of us have with the red isolation transformers can only handle the narrow signal. If you have, you can put your call sign in. If you have a registration number, it goes here, and then VARA will run at the highest rate. You do need to check your sound card, set up your sound card. Again, it's the signal link, and you can set your drive level. You can check whether your drive level is sufficient to key your radio by clicking tune and see if your signal link clicks. This varies quite a bit. I typically find that between minus 5 and minus 10 as a starting point, VARA works pretty well. You can also do an auto tune when you connect to another station. For example, if I'm going to connect to K1EHZ-12, that's the gateway. I can click this button and, oops. It will send a signal up to the gateway, and then it will talk to the gateway and tell me if I need to check my sound card. Okay, so it says my drive level is good and my signal to noise is 24 dB, which is plenty. So we're in good shape then to connect up to K1EHZ-12, and there it's connected. And it's picked up a couple of messages. There are 2 there from George, and you can see we have a signal here, and the color of the pattern in the window here mirrors the signal to noise ratio. So you can get a sense if you miss exactly where the signal to noise signal is, you can get a sense of it here. But even at low signal to noise ratios, it moves pretty quickly, and there I picked up several messages. I got 2 messages from George, and they came across at speeds of about a little over 800 bytes per minute, and the whole session ran at 329 bytes per minute. So that's and some of the signals even came across quite a bit faster than that, between 59,000 and 44,000 bytes per minute. So VARA is a very quick mode. It's becoming very popular, and as I said, the people who try the low-speed version usually end up paying to get the registration key so they can use the high-speed version. And here I've got messages from George. So thank you, George, for those. So let's
I think you have to close the current session.
yeah, I got it. You got hidden back there. Thank you. So let's try a VARA P2P, and then we'll take a little break. Okay, so I opened inadvertently, I opened the HF P2P mode. So I'm going to close that and go back to the FM P2P mode and see if Paul on the other side of Manchester can send me a P2P message. Okay, Paul, give it a shot. So this is the kind of pattern you like to see. This green X pattern means you've got plenty of signal to noise, and the program will run pretty efficiently. It will give you information down here about how fast it's running, 2253, so forth. The number that you get in this box is the level at which the program is running. It's I think of it as sort of like the tachometer on your car. It tells you how fast the engine is running. It doesn't tell you how fast the car is going. So based on the quality of the signal, the program itself will run pretty fast, but the actual throughput depends on other factors, other parts of the system, your computer, the connection between the signal link and the computer and how fast that runs and so forth in actuality. So there we got a message. The total throughput time was 687 bytes per minute. That's very good. It's a good, quick system, and as I said, it's becoming very popular. It's at the moment it's only a direct system, but as we mentioned earlier, Jose Nieto is working on a digipeater mode so that we can run VARA over longer distances that are not necessarily P2P. So you'll notice on the P2P message that came in, it's designated P2P. If Paul had left the P2P off and tried to send it, it would not have transmitted. It would have stayed in his outbox. Steve, I think this is a good time to take a 5-minute break. I will put my introductory screen back up here real quick. People can take a break, go get another cup of coffee or warm up your cup of coffee that's getting cold, which is what I'm going to do, and I'll be back in 5 minutes.
Okay, thanks very much. In about 5 minutes, we'll restart the presentation here. Just stay on the line.
Okay, Steve, I'm ready when you are.
Okay, give it probably another minute or so.
Okay.
Okay, that's been about 5 minutes. Let's get started.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we're covering a lot of material here fairly quickly. And I'm sure there'll be some questions, and we'll try to pick those up in a little bit. Let's continue on exploring the different modes. The next one we want to do is actually an HF mode, ARDOP, which is the one that's built into Winlink. It's a good mode. It replaced WinMore, which was the older built-in HF mode. And here's where, excuse me, here's where the workflow changes a little bit compared to VHF. Here we have settings, and with because this is a sound card mode, you need to check to make sure your sound card's connected, and I had to label my two sound cards, as I mentioned earlier, so make sure I'm on my HF sound card and accept the default ports and so forth. Here's the channel selection. I have to wait for it to initialize there. Okay, so here's channel selection that I recommend people use. It helps with one particular quirk that Winlink has, which we'll talk about in a minute. So each time you use this, or each day, you want to update it. And this is where putting your grid square in the original setup menu way back almost an hour ago, this is where it helps, because this is where it uses that information to produce the propagation probability matrix here. And this is, you want to, as I said, you want to download this every day, and then you can see which stations are available for this mode. This will only list stations that are for the mode that you're in. So in this case, it's ARDOP, and ARDOP runs at either 500 or 2000, or in a range between 500 and 2000. So here you can pick a station, path quality. You want to get something that's fairly high path quality. Above 50, they'll usually be green. I'm not sure where okay, so at 40, it switches to yellow, and then below 30, it switches to red. So here you can find a station that you can connect with if you're ready to do HF modes. And so I'm going to try AC2NB. I'm going to click on that, and you'll notice here the frequency listed for AC2NB is 7102.5. That is not the dial frequency. So 7102.5 is the center frequency of the bandpass. We're doing upper sideband and they assume a 3 kilohertz band pass. So the center frequency that's listed in the channel selection is not the dial frequency, and you have to put the center frequency in order to discern the dial frequency. So coming back to settings and looking at the radio setup, if you have a radio that can be automatically controlled, you can set it up here with a serial port and so forth. If you don't have that, you can choose a manual. And if you're using manual, then you have to pay attention to whether you're looking at the center frequency or the dial frequency. I would like to have a nickel for each time I've plugged the dial frequency in the center frequency box and wondered why I couldn't connect. So it's really important to keep those two notions separate. And if you use the channel selection mode, it will always give you the correct orientation of your frequencies. You can also, if you're not sure what channel to use, you can click on best channel, and if your channel selection list is up to date, it will give you the best channel. And if you can't connect to that one, you can step down to the next one and the next one, and so forth. So I'm just going to see how we can connect here on the dial frequency of 7101 to AC2NB. And right now I'm running about 40 watts to do this, and we'll see if we get a response. And determining what's up with the propagation, sometimes you don't get a response and you have to move on to the next station. ARDOP does have a waterfall that you can check out. I usually leave it out of the way because you can get too many screens. Okay, so we couldn't connect there. Let's try the best channel. It says it's W1EO on 160. I'm going to go to the next one. Okay, W1EO. He's not too far away on 80 meters. Right now, my radio is changing frequencies because it's set up for automatic control, and I have an auto tuner that responds to the change in frequency in the program. So we've connected. It says I've got 30 minutes remaining. That means 30 minutes per day. In order to sort of control the amount of activity on an RMS network, the station operator will often set limits. Usually 30 to 60 minutes for each connecting station is enough time. I had a station a while ago that was passing so many messages through my gateway that through the gateway here that he overused his time, so I had to give him another 30 or 40 minutes on his time when I realized that I was blocking him out. Okay, so there's an ARDOP connection that ran pretty smoothly with W1EO. It's we pulled up a couple of messages here that appear in the inbox. I'm going to get some of this stuff out of the way. And W1LEM. Yes, I'll be happy. Actually, I'll put it on the GM Aries website, gmaries.org, LEM, and you can pick it up over there. And there's a message from N1GB. So that's, I'm going to get back to my session here. So that's RDOP. It's a perfectly good system, works pretty well. It's supported by lots of the RMS stations, and it's a standard mode in Winlink. Okay, let's try a VARA HF session. This looks very similar to the VARA FM session. Once again, it's a sound card mode. This window is a little bit different than the FM version. You probably do want to send a CW ID at the end. We are supposed to send CW ID at the end of a QSO, so VARA HF provides that capability. And you can leave this unchecked. VARA will move between 500 hertz bandwidth and 2300 hertz bandwidth, depending on where you are in the band plan. There are small segments of the band plan that allow wideband data, and those are typically the same as the segments of the band plan that allow automated transmission, automated relay. So for example, on 80 meters, that's 3585 to 3600. You can use wideband and you can use automatic relay. So that's why the gateway here operates on 3595, and I don't have to be here sitting in front of it. It runs 24/7 all by itself. It's pretty well automated, and it will send me an email if it goes offline, so I can check it. But mostly I check it a couple times a day and even restart the computer once a day. So this is the VARA setup again, sound card. Make sure you've got the sound card set up, and here you can set the drive level with your ALC. If you have ALC, you can click tune, watch your ALC, and then set the slider so the ALC is about a third to the halfway mark on the ALC scale here on your radio. VARA overdrives really easily, so you want to keep your ALC pretty low. Okay, so VE1YZ is a pretty reliable station. Let's see if we can connect and see if there are any messages sitting there. So we're now on 40 meters. And it looks like we're not getting there. Oh, there it connected. And that's the sort of green pattern we like to see on the display. So VE1YZ is up in Nova Scotia, I believe. He's 403 miles away at 70 degrees, and he's running a generous time slot here. So I've got 1,440 minutes remaining on his gateway. That's very generous. So that's VARA HF. And a demo message from George. Thank you, George. So now we're going to have some real fun. And George and I are going to try VARA P2P. This is something that we did pretty successfully a couple of weeks ago, and even at very low power during the day, we were able to connect. So, George, I'm on 3595, and you can go ahead and try to connect whenever you're ready. Yep.
Okay, just stand by. I'm going to bring it up.
As I
Where
mentioned,
can it
George
be?
is 114 miles north of me here. So this is a good test, but sometimes 80 meters flakes out on us over this path at this time of day. We're both intentionally running NVIS antennas there. George's antenna, if I remember correctly, is at about 45 feet off the ground, and mine is an inverted V with a peak at about 50 feet and the ends at about 8 feet. So it looks like he's connecting. Let's see what the pattern looks like here. That's a pretty good looking pattern, George. And
I'd say so.
down here it tells us how fast the motor's running and how fast and what the throughput is. Signal to noise is a pretty healthy signal. It's a very nice green X pattern. That's what you look for when you have a nice clean signal.
Looks like we did it.
Yep. Excellent. So we did pretty well. Bytes per minute was a little over 2,000 for the message, and we were a little slow off the mark there, but 196 bytes per minute, and let's see, for the whole session, 48 bytes per minute, but that's because we were slow getting connected in the beginning there. So that's VARA P2P. It works pretty well, and as I said, our group here in New Hampshire had lots of fun with it a couple of weeks ago. We had people involved from all corners of the state. George representing the northernmost, and then we had the easternmost over by the seacoast, and the westernmost over by the Connecticut River. So it was and southernmost. So it was really a good exercise. We had lots of fun with it. So if your Aries group is interested in trying out Winlink, and you're willing to do HF, VARA P2P is a really nice mode to use. One of the things I didn't do, and I should have done first off, was to talk about sound card settings. This is an area that is not perfectly well defined. I find it pretty easy to and convenient to put a shortcut to my sound card control panel here on the desktop so that I can find it pretty easily. In Windows 7, it's pretty easy to find the control panel. It's less easy in Windows 10, so I find it easy to put it here. So you want your computer sound output, your computer speakers to be the default device, and then your Winlink devices, the signal links one can be in my case, one of mine is the default communications device, and the other is just a separate signal. You'll notice that I've labeled them. If I click on one of them and open it up, I can change the label so that I know which signal link I'm dealing with here. For the most part, you want to set your sound card so that it reads dB, and for the speakers, push them all the way up. VARA in particular recommends that you push them all the way up, and then compensate. You can compensate for if you're using FLDigi or packet Winlink, you can compensate with the signal link. It's a little easier to turn the knob on the signal link than it is to dig around in here. You want to make sure the enhancements are off, and this is really important. On the Advanced tab, you want to make sure that Allow Applications to Take Exclusive Control is not checked. You don't want to check that. For recording devices, same thing. Your internal device can be your default device, and then your signal link can be a regular device or or a default communications device. Once again, you want to set your levels to dB, not to percentage, by right-clicking on the box there. And then VARA recommends putting the microphone at about 0 dB, and that seems to work pretty well. And then you can, again, compensate with the volume control and the signal link, the gain control and the signal link for other modes. And again, you want to uncheck allow applications to take exclusive control of the device. I'm going to go back to packet here for a minute. And one of the things I should have shown you earlier that I skipped over inadvertently. Oops. Come on. Is how to set the sound levels on your sound modem. So I'm going to turn down the squelch here so that I get a pattern on sound modem. And again, I want to make sure that that I'm set up on the correct signal link, and I am. And then you can adjust the level on your sound modem here by with your signal link. And right now it's a little bit low. Typically you can raise it up so that it's sort of blue-green in here, and that gives you sufficient gain for a signal. I tend to keep it a little bit lower so that it's down in the blue region, and it still seems to work pretty well. So that's if you can adjust your gain with the squelch off on your FM radio, and that sets the you can observe the gain and then turn the squelch back on and get rid of the background noise. Okay, so we've covered, as I said, an awful lot of ground. We've done some demonstrations, and I'm open now to answer any questions or any comments. Let me put this down, and let's see what's in Q&A. Okay.
So to remind the folks to type their question in the Q&A, and Jay can answer it from there.
Right. Okay. Yes, I hope I explained VARA and ARDOP. What's a TNC? A TNC is a terminal node controller. They've been used for packet radio for quite a long time, and in a hardware format, and more recently the terminal node controllers are in a software format. Basically what it does is it translates the ASCII code coming out of the computer into sound that you can use to modulate a radio, and does the reverse, demodulates the sound and turns it into ASCII code for the computer. Is there any kind of peer to multi-peer in Winlink? Not specifically. What you can do is to set up one station, and what we've done is set up one station as a sort of a net control station and put messages there. The Part 97 allows one station of a pair to be unattended. So the station that's being interrogated can be unattended, but the station that's doing the interrogating has to be attended. So you can set up a station that acts essentially as a post office box, and you can send messages to that station, or that station can post messages for a whole bunch of other stations. And one of the things I didn't show you, which I probably should. Let me see if I can get that out of the way. is in, if you set up a test message, and here my default ARRL address came up. So let's say I'm planning to send a peer-to-peer message to a bunch of stations. Let's say I'm net control, and I want to send messages to several stations, KC1 N1GB, K1EHZ, W1EAA. So now I've got a bunch of stations that I want to send the same message to, and again, I'll just make it a test message. But I want to send it as a peer-to-peer message. So I'm going to choose peer-to-peer as my message type. So I've only got one message, but I've got 4 stations that I want to send it to, or I want them to come in and pick it up. So now I'm going to click Post to the Outbox. And what Winlink does is it takes that one message, and when it posts it to the outbox, it breaks it out to each of the stations and puts P2P after it, so everybody knows that it's a P2P message. So now those stations can come in on P2P if I open up a P2P session. I must have a session open here. Yeah, let's close that. So if I open up a packet P2P session, now they can come in on packet P2P and pick up their messages. Okay, there's sound modem. So now as long as I'm set up with a packet, no, that's not packet, P2P, sorry. I have to do it correctly. So now if I just have a packet P2P session open, I can walk away, go get a cup of coffee, go down to the hardware store and pick up some ground wire or whatever I want to do. And these 4 stations can come in and pick up their messages in a P2P mode. So that's about as close to a multi-peer as I've been able to find. Let's see, unable to add tactical calls or pickup stations and cannot update Winlink because according to Winlink Express, I do not have an internet connection. Okay, well, you do need an internet connection. That has to do with, I obviously have internet or I would not be able to send this. Yes, obviously. Okay, so people are coming in. Paul came in to pick up his P2P message. Yeah, I can't help you with fixing your internet connection. Winlink Express should see it pretty easily. So if your internet is available down here in the tray, in my case, I'm hardwired here. Your Winlink should pick that up if it's if your computer is connected to the internet. So Harlan, I'm not sure how I can help you with that from here. It continues to be a problem. Send me a message and we can talk on the phone and see if we can figure it out. Is it possible for clubs or other groups to negotiate group prices? I believe so. I think somebody called Jose and was able to get a group price for $50 rather than 70. So you can contact Jose. You can get his email address from the website where you download VARA. Can a message be sent to standard email addresses? So a civilian, yes, absolutely. Anytime on any of these, not in the P2P modes, but in the regular Winlink modes, you can send email to a regular address. So if I just go to regular packet email, I could send a message. You just put the full email address in here. Put the full email address in here, and then it will go. I can send it to an RMS, and from the RMS, it'll get on the internet and go to any worldwide email address. Once you have done that, the email address that you send out to will go on your whitelist, and then that address can send a message back to you. And that's the easiest way to get them on the whitelist. Otherwise, you've got to go in manually and put a bunch of email addresses on your whitelist through the program here. So my recommendation is, if you want to regularly send to people outside of the Winlink system, send them an email first, and then their email address will be registered on your whitelist, and it'll be easy for you to get messages coming back. Let's see. Oh, wrong one. You remember I said that not everybody needs to know everything, and clearly I'm among those who don't know everything, and I'm exceedingly pleased Steve is our Zoom expert. Let's see, what can we send messages to test our setups? Well, you can send them to your own personal email address. As long as it's not a Winlink address, you can send email to your Comcast or Yahoo or Gmail or ARRL address. You can certainly, it's always fun to have a buddy. If there's somebody else in your area's group who's interested in tinkering with Winlink, you can send messages back and forth both by radio and by Telnet, and work on things that way. It's a great way to learn, and it's always good to have a buddy to talk things over with when things don't necessarily work. Is there any benefit of using VARA FM instead of a KPC3? I've got a bunch of KPCs, and they work fine. The advantage of packet is that you can use digipeaters. So I think that's, even though it's old technology, if you have a KPC3, you can use packet. It works fine, and you can use digipeaters. VARA is becoming more popular because it's faster, generally. And Jose Nieto, EA5 HVK, is developing a digipeater program for VARA. For digipeaters with packet, you don't need a computer. You can just hook the TNC up to the radio, and it'll run all by itself without a computer. If you're using VARA for digipeating or for anything else, you need to have a computer associated with the radio. So those are choices people can make. Could Jay add a bit more about why HF and VHF sound card selection? I hope I got that right. Thank you. Very good info. Okay. Thank you, Sam. Let's see. I'm not sure. Say a bit more about sound card selection. Do you mean choosing a sound card, Signal Link versus Rig Blaster, or so forth? I'm not quite sure how to address that, but to let's get rid of that. So if we go down to, let's say, ARDOP, regardless of what your sound card is, you can set it up here in the sound card in the ARDOP settings menu. So if your sound card is connected, and you always want to have your sound stuff plugged in before you open the software, it may not make such a difference with Winlink, but it makes a big difference with FLDigi if you don't have your sound card plugged in before you open FLDigi. FLDigi may not see it. So having spent a couple of years with FLDigi, I automatically check to make sure that all my stuff is plugged in before I open up any programs. And I always double check when I open a program to make sure I've got the right sound card selected. So, so that's where you look for your sound card selection in ARDOP. ARDOP has its own setup over here. I have never found it necessary to change any of the settings in the ARDOP window settings folder, settings menu rather. But it's there. If you're an expert and know what all these things mean, you can change it. But I'm happy that it works, and I don't need to know too much about what's going on under the hood. Let's see, for VARA HF, again, to choose the sound card there, you go to the actual VARA window and look under settings, and the sound card would be there, and make sure that you've chosen the right one. VARA FM is very similar, and so I hope that answers your question on that. If it didn't, send me a note at K1EHZ@ARRL.net, and I'll be happy to try again. Can we get the recording? Yes, the recording will be available.
Yes, it's on YouTube. Just type in New England Aries Academy in the search, and you'll find all the recordings.
On the sound control, was that different sound cards or just different settings? I tend to leave my computer sound control with the speakers all the way up and the microphone set at 0 dB, which sometimes is in the middle and sometimes is at the far left, depending on whether I'm on which laptop or computer I'm on. It's something that you have to play with a little bit, because it's not exactly the same on every computer. Even among, I have a handful of laptops here that I use for various purposes, and the sound settings are slightly different on all of them. So for microphone, I tend to set the slider for the microphone about in the middle. That's usually about 0 dB, but sometimes it's not. If 0 dB is already all the way to the left, I tend to move the slider up to the middle anyway, and try it there, and then make adjustments with the signal link as I move between programs. If I don't get quite enough sound for one program or another, I use the gain controls on the signal link because it's easier than messing around with the sound control panel in Windows. So Terry, I hope that addresses your question. If not, K1EHZ@ARRL.net, and I'll try again. You're welcome, Sam. What's the status of Pactor? Is it going away? No, I don't think so. Pactor is an important mode. It's used by sailors. In fact, if you Google Pactor, looking to buy one, what you get are a lot of yacht sales companies, because they sell them to sailors who are offshore and use Pactor to connect to Winlink to send email to folks back home on the shore. So I don't think it's going away. I think people will opt to use VARA instead of Pactor because the speeds are comparable, and VARA is a lot cheaper. So I don't think Pactor is going to go away. Hi, Rob. There are so many different modes. Is there any effort to standardize for Aries operations? Well, that's up to your Aries group. I think there are, it's sort of like FLDigi, where in like one time I counted all the FLDigi modes and I got up to about 130. So I think if you look at FLDigi, you find that people settle on modes that work well for them, for their situation, and I think the same will be true for Winlink and different modes. Once you get a message to the CMS, then it doesn't matter what mode people are in. You can send a message up to a CMS in one radio mode and pick it up in another radio mode. So the need for standardization through the CMS is not really driving anything. Within ARES groups, you'll probably settle on modes and frequencies and so forth for various local operations. Would you recommend Windows 7 or 10? Well, I prefer Windows 7, but since it's gone away, I've upgraded to Windows 10. If you have a valid Windows 7 code, you can still upgrade to Windows 10 for free. You just have to find the right website. Make sure it's a Microsoft website. If you Google free Windows 10, you'll get a bunch of websites that may or may not be Microsoft, so make sure you're on a Microsoft website. But you can still get it for free if you've got a valid Windows 7 code. But it runs fine on Windows. Winlink runs fine on Windows 7. And if you have some old Windows 7 around and you want to use them for VHF gateways or something, they work fine. Is there a glossary of acronyms? Probably. I can't point you to it, though. I'm sorry to say, John, I don't know if where there is a glossary. If you're talking about ARDOP, I think that stands for Amateur Radio Digital Operating Protocol or something like that. VARA is, Jose explained on a video that he did for Dan Marler a while ago. He chose the name VARA because it's a cartoon superhero in Spain, apparently. So VARA is a cartoon superhero in Spain, and that's how he chose that one. Beyond that, I can't help you. But thanks for the question. New to ham, a little over my head, but interesting. Well, James, if you get tangled up in this, I'm happy to do some coaching over the phone. I do that pretty regularly with our folks, and so you can send me an email, and if you want some coaching over the phone, we can do that for sure. John, what about using non-Windows computers such as Raspberry Pis for field deployment? There are other clients that can access the Winlink system. There are a couple that run on Linux. I'm not a Linux guy, so I can't help you. We do have some people have had success running the Linux clients for the Winlink system. A couple of our guys in our group who are Linux guys do all their FLDigi on Linux. Tried running Linux clients for Winlink and ended up just using some old Windows computers because they found it easier to do that than to configure the Linux clients for Winlink. But there are people who do it. I don't know about the Raspberry Pi. I do run a Raspberry Pi and FLDigi, but I haven't tried it yet on Winlink. Although there is a Windows 10 version for Raspberry Pi, it runs really slowly, but I have had it up and running, and I have run Winlink through the Windows 10 version that runs on a Raspberry Pi, but it runs really slowly if you're trying to do anything other than run Winlink. Winlink runs pretty well on the Windows version. It's a Windows, I forget what they call it. But there is one, you can Google it, and there is a fellow on Winlink on the web who has some instructions on how to set up the Windows 10 version for Raspberry Pi. So I'll leave you to try that. Confused about sound modem. I use an Alinco with internal TNC for VHF and a SignLink for HF. Do I need sound modem? Why and when? Probably not. If you already have the let's see. Okay, I don't know the answer to that. I thought maybe I did, but I don't. I use my FT991 without a second link using a direct connection through a USB port, and that works. But I don't know how to do it within a Linko. So it may be possible if you've got a direct USB connection to the Linko, you may be able to do that. If you're using the signal link for HF on an Linko, you may be able to use it for the VHF side as well if you're running them both on the same radio. And if you are, for the signal link, you need sound modem or VARA, depending on which mode you're running. You wouldn't use a sound modem on HF. It's only intended for VHF FM. I hope that helps. Again, you have my email. If it didn't, I'll be happy to try again. Can I go directly between software and the Kenwood 590 without any other equipment? If you have a USB port, you should be able to do that. Again, I don't know the settings for all the different radios, but it's certainly worth a try if you can do it without a signal link. Rob. Charles, hi Charles. Charles lives not too far from here. 71G with a TNC on for Winlink packet. Would I need a signal link for VARA FM? Yeah, you can use the same signal link for VARA FM, especially if you have the exclusive mode unchecked, as we talked about earlier. You can run them both all interchangeably, just as I did here. All the work I did here was on the same signal link for VHF and the second signal link for all the HF programs. The reason I need two is because I have two radios. But if you have a signal link connected to one radio, you should be able to use it for all your modes. Dale says from Houston, hi Dale. Hope you're having a good day in Houston. Filled out the station data for my registration number. Okay, you don't need that right away. You can simply close that and continue, right? No, you don't have to pay a fee. The fee is an optional donation, and the software will work without the registration number. And if you're on Winlink for a while, I think they will send you a registration number. The reason to have a registration number is so that you can use it offline when you're not connected to the internet. It tells the various pieces of software that you have a registered Winlink account. When you are connected to the internet, Winlink accesses the main Winlink system pretty frequently, checks up on things. In the case of the gateway here, it tells the main system whether which of my systems are online for relaying and for accessing the internet. Okay, RKB, I live in the Northeast like you. How does Winlink work in bad weather such as heavy rain, snow? It works pretty well as anything. There is a question of how well antennas stay up in some of the rain, wind, and snow and ice. My VHF antenna for Winlink is actually a ladder line Slim Jim from N9TAX, November 9 Tango Alpha X-ray. It's about 25 bucks, and I've got it pulled on a rope about 50 feet up in a pine tree. It was an easy way to get a VHF antenna up high since I don't have a tower. And it's been up for, I think, 4 or 5 winters without any problem. So Winlink works as well as anything. But like other VHF modes, when the leaves are on the trees and the leaves are filled with water, there's VHF attenuation. But that doesn't slow down Winlink any more than it slows down FLDigi or other digital modes. Jeff says, got it. Our station's still using Winmore. We're trying to get away from it, and apparently it's going to be removed from future versions of Winlink Express. So we were asked as sysops, we were asked to stop using it last summer, and I turned it off in August on my system. It's still it's still there, but I have it turned off, and it may be that eventually it will be turned off in Winlink Express and won't be available anymore. ARDOP works really well, and it's the replacement, so you might want to try beginning to practice with ARDOP and see how that works for you, Lee. Tony, any recommendation on message size as it relates to transceiver duty cycle? Well, as always, we want to be efficient about using spectrum, and so I don't have a recommendation on message size. We didn't get into sending attachments. I did get a small photo from Paul the other day, a small image that came through as an attachment. So you can practice with a couple different sizes and see. The one thing I can say about HF is related to duty cycle is you only want to run about a third to a half of your power, of your full power on HF because of the duty cycle. Even though it's USB, the duty cycle can get pretty intense. So if you're running a 100-watt transceiver, try to keep your power down to 30 to 50 watts. I typically run the gateway around 40 watts, and that seems to be plenty. One of the things I didn't mention, we didn't get into too much, is that VARA in particular and PACTOR will run just fine below the signal to noise ratio at negative signal to noise ratio. So N1GB and I were running very low power, a couple of watts between us a couple of weeks ago, and the throughput was slow, but we were running at minus 15 dB signal to noise ratios. So the software helps a lot and allows you to run relatively low power and keep your duty cycle down on your transceiver. Again, about a third to a half of your transceiver max power. I'm greatly enjoying this. Thank you so much. You're welcome, Lester. It's been fun for me too. It's always fun to try to do this live, and thankfully the Comcast in our neighborhood held up, and all the kids who play video games on Saturday morning apparently didn't interfere with our bandwidth here. I do not have a diagram, but we could probably find one on the web. So let me think about that. Sue, if you send me an email, I'll look for a diagram and see if I can find one. It shouldn't be too complicated, but I would need to know what radio and computer and so forth you have. How many watts of power output? Well, about a third to a half of your transceiver maximum capability. Is Linux an option? There's a good, since people asked, let me try to go here. Winlink Global Radio. So if you go here and go to user programs on the Winlink site, these are all the clients that will run connected to the Winlink main system, and it shows the modes that you can use on them. And some of these are Linux modes. Let's see, message multi-user. And there are download links and support group links here if you want to try some of these. So you can try PAT or PAClink Unix. You can try them. I'm not an expert in them, and I'm not going to, anything I would say about them would you should consider misinformation. So I'll let you explore those yourself. Oops. How did I do that? Okay, we've got a few more questions here. We're coming up on the 2-hour limit. So I understand that some of you may have to leave. I will stay here and answer questions for a while longer. Winlink client for RPI. Yeah, you can try Pat and some of the other Linux clients and see how they work. Jay, thanks. Okay, Paul and Pierre, you're welcome. Very helpful. Looking forward to replaying the video. Thanks. John tried to download sound modem. Oh yes, it's fine. You may have to disable or work around Norton. When you install it, you may also have to tell Windows that it's okay to install it, but it is okay to install if you're definitely on the UV7HO website and downloading sound modem 105 version. It is fine. Thank you again. When can I obtain Signalink during the winter months? James. Okay, I'm not sure what you mean there, James. You might try rephrasing that and see if you can get through to me. Testing, KC2, Larry, excellent. Thank you, Larry. Glad you enjoyed it. Thank you, John. Okay, N1ZO in Lincoln, Rhode Island. Great, John, thank you. Have you designated suggested digital Go kit for field deployment that would work throughout the state? No, we haven't, John. If we wanted to work throughout the state, it would have to be a digital, an HF Go kit with an NVIS antenna. And so for probably, we would work on 80 or 40 meters, so we would need an NVIS antenna for HF on those bands, and that's probably the limiting factor is the antenna and the place to put it up. I've done some testing of various antennas, and I find that the 80-meter hamstick dipoles that you can get from MFJ, for example, work pretty well. They don't receive as well. They transmit okay, but they don't receive as well. The best antenna I found is an inverted V, a trap inverted V for 80 and 40. I made one with soda beams, traps, little soda beams, if you're familiar with sodabeams.com, with some little soda beams traps. Works really well. You put it up with a single center pole and stretch the ends out to the ground, and they work really well, and they hear really well. No problem. I use it at field day, and I have no problem working out into Virginia and Western Pennsylvania and so forth on 40 and 80 meters NVIS. Thanks, you're welcome. Thanks, John. Again, Wendy, thank you. Fran, nice job, thank you. Okay, that looks like all the questions, and it's 11:02. So thanks, everybody. I really appreciate your coming on and interacting. It's been fun for me, and you have my email address, and you have the gmares.org website to pick up other information, and I will post or I'll ask Ken, our webmaster, to post the PDF of the presentation on our website, and the video of the presentation will be up soon. So thanks again to Steve, George, and Paul for helping out. 7.3s and K1EHZ QRT.
Okay, thank you very much. This concludes our session of the New England Areas Academy webinar series on Winlink. Remember to register for future sessions at hamexposition.org. That's hamexposition.org. That's ham with an X, position.org. 73, and thank you for attending.